This is an incredible time to revisit some classic Star Wars games. In my previous video, we dived into the large-scale battles of Star Wars The Clone Wars, but now we're going back way before the events of Attack of the Clones to see how one man will become the template for a pivotal part in Star Wars history. In today's video, I'll be hunting down the Platinum Trophy for the fan favorite, Star Wars Bounty Hunter. Like many of you out there, I was initially puzzled by Aspyr's decision to remaster this classic game, especially since it was already ported to the PS4 years ago. I played that version during my high school days, so I didn't have any plans to buy the remaster. That is until I found out this version had a Platinum Trophy, something the port lacked. It has been a while since I last played this game, so I figured it would be fun to experience Bounty Hunter and get that coveted Platinum Trophy, even if it made me want to hurl my controller across the room out of frustration. The story in Bounty Hunter kicks off shortly after the events of The Phantom Menace. Lord Tyrannus receives orders from Darth Sidious to eliminate the Dark Jedi and leader of the Bando Gora, Komari Bosa, while also finding a host for the clone army. This is when we step into the shoes of Jango Fett as he hunts for a criminal named Miko Ginty. Right off the bat, I was introduced to the remaster's revamped controls and started racking up trophies. I unlocked my first one shortly after defeating the Borhek by using my cutting torch to escape the pit. As I made my way through the arena, I encountered one of the game's biggest challenges, the additional bounties. Each mission, except for those in Chapter 6, features 5 to 15 bounties that can be collected. Now, I don't think this was a bad idea, as it adds a strategic layer to the gameplay, but as I got further into the game, this grew more and more frustrating. For this first mission, there were only 5 bounties, so it wasn't too bad. However, with a total of 150 bounties in the game, I quickly realized I needed some help. I messed around with a few walkthroughs until I settled on Stay Lost, whose videos were straightforward not only for the bounties, but for other parts in the game I struggled on also. Using this guide, I found my first bounty, Burbaker Teep, and as you can see, I was a bit confused about how to capture him. After checking the bounty hunting info in the pause menu, I learned how to tie him up, as well as mark and claim my first bounty for a couple of trophies. Bounty Hunter also comes with plenty of combat trophies, some of which I earned during this mission. I casually killed an enemy with my fist, poison darts, and a blaster rifle. It wasn't long until I got killed, by my own doing. Not my finest work, but can we talk about how hilarious the description for the trophy is? After a quick respawn, I realized I killed a couple of bounties, and I really did not want to replay these missions later if I could, so I restarted it and rushed through, making sure to find the bounties I killed before. I even got a trophy along the way for killing a non-enemy. Something else to look out for during these missions is secrets. Each mission comes with one, and were part of the guides I watched, so I never had an issue finding them. As I wrapped up this mission, I found my first secret in a hidden room. Moments later, I completed the mission, popping trophies for claiming all bounties in a single level, and completing a level without using a continue, which I accomplished after that earlier restart. Continuing the search for Miko, the missions began to open up more, and as a result, I had additional bounties to find, with this mission having 10. Now, I thought I could go in and find these guys by myself, but scanning each environment and missing a couple at one point was evidence enough that I needed to go back to a guide. Fighting mercs and collecting bounties along the way, I found Miko making a run for it on a speeder. This is when I got my hands on Jango's iconic jetpack to chase him down.
They fly now?
Cheeky trophy name, guys. Not only could I fly, but it also unlocked the flamethrower, which I quickly put to use. We catch up to Miko, who crashes his speeder and escapes into the docking bays. This is when we start getting into the platforming sections of Bounty Hunter, which I thought was a nice deviation from running and gunning, sometimes. While it did add some variety to the mission design, there were times when I found the platforming to be a bit finicky. This led to many instances when I fell to my death, but the first time I did this was... well, I'll just let the clip play for itself. I did have to replay the mission because I killed yet another bounty, but on the bright side, I got another trophy for killing 2 enemies with an exploding barrel. This mission concludes with a boss fight against Miko in a ship. I felt comfortable taking him on since I had a few continues and just needed to target a few weak spots. With the ship destroyed, Miko was finally captured, bringing Chapter 1 to a close. Chapter 2 takes us to Coruscant in search of Death Stick dealer Jervis Gloom. This is the first mission in the game where I have 15 additional bounties to capture, making it a real challenge. This is a more open mission, and despite following a guide, some bounties kind of just had a mind of their own and weren't where I expected them to be, or just something weird happened. After a couple of retries and finding some Mandalorian rage, I found Jervis, who points me to Groff Ha in the industrial sector. Compared to the last mission, this one wasn't too bad, but a tricky platforming section halfway through had me struggling for a while. After numerous deaths, I finally got to dish out some pain with a heavy machine gun. Reaching a carbon freezing chamber, I encountered an old rival, Montross, who throws my target in carbonite. I fight him and bro, how many times is he going to repeat the same line over and over again?
Not bad, but you still got it. You still got it.
After depleting his health, he escaped and I received a message from Senator Trell, who was involved in the Death Stick operation. Before moving on, I want to bring it back to the bounties for a quick second. Something I didn't mention is that collecting them, dead or alive, gives you credits that, to my knowledge, aren't used for anything, but do unlock a couple of trophies. By the end of level 5, I collected 45 bounties for a total of 100,000 credits. In the upper city, I got my hands on some thermal detonators and a grenade launcher, which I put to good use. At the top, we found the Senator, who easily has one of the best deaths in the entire game.
Release him now.
As you wish.
No, please. Blast him.
This mission wraps up with the fight against the Republic shuttle, and I was very nervous as I didn't have any continues left, but there were plenty of enemies providing more than enough health and ammo to take down the ship. With a lead on the Bando Gora, this properly ends Chapter 2. Chapter 3 is where the problems really start. The first level wasn't too bad as I broke into a prison in search of Bendix Fucks.
What did I say?
The first level wasn't too bad as I broke into a prison in search for Bendix Bust. I got my hands on a new weapon, the manually guided missile, and used it early on to take out some guards. It was the familiar routine when I found Bendix being taken by another bounty hunter. What proceeded was possibly the worst mission in the entire game. The breakout sees us battling through numerous riots in the prison, and while the concept is cool, playing it was brutal. Searching for bounties among throngs of prisoners and guards who could shred through my health made for a grueling experience. Even Miko got his comeuppance at one point. I really was not having the best time here. Even when I seemed to be in the clear, a random turret would take me out, or the mission just failed for whatever reason. Bro, what the fuck? I played this mission so many times that not only did I memorize where the 10 bounties were, I also got 2 trophies for killing a total of 1,000 and 1,500 enemies during this mission. I kid you not, I spent a good 2 days here, and I don't think I've ever been so happy to see a cutscene in my life. Barely scraping by, I confronted Zam, who's now willing to work with us, but a fire spray blew up my ship, forcing us to find a way off this rock in the hangar. The next mission started tough, but the rest wasn't too bad. After shutting down the prison shields, I fought a security drone, ending this punishing chapter. Our next destination is Malastare to deliver Fust. Compared to the previous chapter, this one was mostly smooth sailing. From a difficulty standpoint, I managed to get through these missions just fine. The only trophy I got here was from killing an enemy with a sniper. But, unsurprisingly, the bounties were the main issue. Remember earlier when I said they can have a mind of their own? This chapter proved that. Each level here has 15 additional bounties to collect, so there was a lot of backtracking going on. During the first mission of Chapter 4, the last bounty target just decided to yeet himself off a cliff, forcing me to restart the level. Luckily, this is the only mission for some reason where I did not have to start from the very beginning. It instead plopped me in the middle, which I wish was the case for more missions. Once I caught him, Zam helped me get into Sabolto's compound, and after this happened, I ran through the mission again, catching up to Sabolto, who fled into a death stick factory. Just thinking about this mission sends shivers down my spine. Capturing the first 9 bounties was a breeze, but this guy, again, thought it would be best to put himself out of his misery. If he did it once, fine, but he did it repeatedly, and I started to become frustrated. He wasn't the only one either, as other bounties would fall to their deaths, dragging this mission out longer than it really needed to be. However, after my 6th attempt, I finally caught him and the remaining bounties. This chapter ends with my first look at the Bandogora and another fight against Montross. Suspecting the Hutts are working for the Bandogora, we take the Slave 1 to Tatooine to question them on Komari Vosa. In what I would consider the most infamous mission in the game, I had to find Longo 2 Guns who would grant me an audience with Jabba. Now for whatever reason, the game takes away your jetpack, so I had to rely on my nifty acrobatics to dodge hordes of enemies that could gun me down quickly. On a first playthrough, this mission actually was not that bad. There is a trophy associated with this level, but I didn't pop it here, so I'll get back to it later. I did capture the 15 additional bounties, where I reached a total of 330,000 credits. While Jabba doesn't have any information on the Bandogora, Gardula the Hutt does in her vault. Zam is captured, so I take the back way through a Tusken canyon to reach Gardula. Fighting Tusken Raiders, Massives, and Mercs through the canyon wasn't that bad either, but let me tell y'all something. I used to be terrified of Tusken Raiders for the longest time. While I have gotten over that fear, I won't lie, there were some moments here that freaked me out. Otherwise, I was doing just fine until another issue arose. See, I was playing this level during a stormy night and, yeah, you guessed it, the power went out. I was annoyed that I would have to play this mission again, but that wasn't the only problem. Somehow the game did not save my progress for the last mission. All the bounties and secret I found were just gone, so now I had to go through that mission again. I called it a night here and tackled it the next day, but I don't know what happened to me. I started to struggle real bad, so not only did I have to restart the mission because I died so much, but to no one's surprise, the last bounty fell to his death, leading to yet another playthrough of this mission. This was definitely the moment I started to question if this platinum was worth it. I stuck it out though when I caught the last bounty and found Zam, who pointed me in the direction of Gardula's vault. Thinking that I'm going to leave her for dead, she ends up getting me captured. It didn't take long for me to get my stuff back, and I blasted my way through her palace and fought her crate dragon. This thing was a damaged sponge, which should come as no surprise, but I also had to deal with enemies that were spamming rockets at me. You guys have no idea how badly I wanted to delete the game at this moment. But I persevered and defeated her dragon. Before moving on to chapter 6, I needed to collect the 15 remaining bounties. Now, if my power had not gone out, I would have popped this at the end of chapter 5, but as I mentioned, my progress for that mission was erased. Playing through Longo 2 Guns for what would be my 3rd time, I found the bounties again, finally getting that trophy. Now for the final chapter, which was a breeze. I find Vosa's lair, which had 0 bounties to collect and only the Bandogora to fight. Everything was going smoothly until I got caught by the Bandogora. This is where I finally meet Vosa, who has an alluring character design to put it lightly. Zam came in clutch to break us out, and it was a chase after Vosa where I collected the 18th and final secret in the game. We duked it out, and for someone trained in the Jedi arts, she sure did not put up much of a fight. I don't know how you would make a boss fight against a Force user manageable, given their powers and the fact that they have a freaking lightsaber, but personally, I would have liked a bit more of a challenge. I know that's odd coming from me after the living hell I put myself through, but some more attacks or just something would have made this fight more worthwhile. However, once she is defeated, we meet Tyrannus, who offers the chance for immortality by becoming the template for a clone army. We rescue Zam, and this ends the story for Star Wars Bounty Hunter. With the bulk of this list complete, I only had a couple more trophies to wrap up before the platinum was mine. The most extensive one is what I alluded to earlier during the Longo 2 Guns mission in Chapter 5. I had to kill 150 enemies without killing any non-enemies. It sounds simple, and in hindsight, it is, as most of the fighting areas don't have any non-enemies. However, it's the long hallways and a few spots where Jawas and astromechs roam that can get tricky. What could really mess things up are the womp rats that are scattered everywhere. While I'm not 100% sure if these count as non-enemies, I tried my best not to kill them in the process. I did have to replay this mission again after accidentally killing a Jawa who got in the mix, but after barely getting through it alive, this trophy was mine. Next, I had a few things in the menu to browse through. I briefly want to mention the Wizards of the Coast training cards. While they don't tie into a trophy, they did look pretty cool. The first thing I did though was check out a prequel comic called Jango Fett Open Seasons. It was an interesting read, and I later learned that it was penned by Hayden Blackman, the project lead for The Force Unleashed 1 and 2, which are some of my favorite Star Wars games. After finishing the comic, I watched a hilarious set of outtakes that you can tell the devs had a blast making.
I can't see a thing in this helmet. How am I supposed to hunt?
Honestly, I wish more games included funny, behind-the-scenes moments like this. With all 6 watched, I got the trophy and the platinum. Where do I start with Bounty Hunter? Let me begin by saying that the game itself is actually really fun. Going around, blasting goons with Jango's badass arsenal of weapons, and navigating these levels with his jetpack was a great time. The story was also engaging, taking us to many planets, new and old, while perfectly setting up how Jango became the host for one of sci-fi's most iconic armies. However, getting the platinum was a pain. This is one of those rare cases where just playing the game would have been much more enjoyable than getting the platinum. What really derailed this for me are the bounties. This one aspect caused so much unnecessary backtracking that could have easily been avoided if the AI wasn't so dumb. That's a shame because the rest of this trophy list is fairly easy to get through. What is satisfying though is that I ended up being one of the first achievers for the platinum on PSN profiles. This felt great, but I do wonder how many people picked this game up, as there's a surprisingly low player count, at least on PSN profiles. Getting back to the game though, something I wish it had was some sort of upgrade system. With all the credits you earn, it's surprising you can't do anything with them. It would have been awesome if there was some menu where you could upgrade your weapon damage, give your jetpack more fuel, among other stuff. Maybe if this game were to get some sort of remake, which I doubt will ever happen, this could be something a future dev considers. Before wrapping up the video, I have to say, with all these Star Wars games making a comeback on PS5, one game I'm praying returns is Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. This game is so special to me, and I hope Aspyr, or this new emulation tech Sony is working on, makes it possible one day. That wraps up the video. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. What are your thoughts on Star Wars Bounty Hunter? I know the remaster might not be a necessary purchase for everyone, but if you enjoyed this on the PS2, GameCube, the original PS4 port, or this remaster, I'd love to hear your thoughts about your experience in the comments. Please be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. May the Force be with you.